History is full of so many different stories about Mary Todd Lincoln with different descriptions of the actual influence she had on President Abraham Lincoln's life and administration. But could it be that she pushed him into the presidency, that he regretted his marriage to her, that she was unethical and manipulative?
A new book by historian and author Michael Burlingame examines all of this. It's called An American Marriage, The Untold Story of Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Good morning.
Well, I think we all have heard the stories that Mary Todd suffered with tremendous grief from the loss of her children, and maybe there were some issues there with her, but what have you uncovered that we didn't know before?
Well, before I get into that, I'd just like to underscore that Mary Lincoln, in my view, is more to be pitied than censured. She did lose her mother when she was 6 years old. Her father quickly remarried a woman who didn't like her. She was the classic wicked stepmother. She lost 3 of her 4 children before they reached adulthood. Her husband's murdered by her side. She had terrible migraine headaches. She had menstrual problems. So the Almighty ladles out a fair amount of misery on all our plates, but her portion, it seems to me, was particularly heaping. So I'd like to preface everything I say about Mrs. Lincoln with those remarks. Now, what I have found in my own research is that Lincoln was physically abused by his spouse, that he may well have been trapped into marriage, that when she was First Lady, Mrs. Lincoln engaged in all kinds of unethical behavior, padding payrolls, padding expense accounts, extorting bribes, accepting kickbacks, selling cotton trading permits, and the like. And that Lincoln almost never talked about his personal life, but he did tell one of his very close friends during his presidency that he was constantly afraid that his wife would do something to bring him into disgrace publicly, and she did.
I think it's surprising to hear the way you describe it, that Abraham Lincoln would be so passive and easily manipulated. Can you explain that?
Well, in his personal life and his dealings with women, he was very passive. As president, as war president, he was very assertive. But going back to his adolescence, Lincoln was notoriously bashful and uneasy around women, and was very passive in his dealings with them during his previous courtships before he married her, so that Lincoln was not essentially a passive man, particularly when he was president, but in his dealings with women, he was.
In his dealings at home, maybe the tense situation, did you allude to the fact that maybe that made him better equipped to deal with people that were difficult during his presidency?
Yes. One of the most striking features about Lincoln as president is his remarkable ability to deal with difficult people. When you consider the newspaper editors who were constantly barking at his heels, the senators and congressmen who were constantly criticizing him and urging him this way and that way, when generals who treated him with contempt even, and were very recalcitrant because once they had stars on their shoulders, they thought they were little gods. And that Lincoln was able to deal with all these very difficult people, to keep his temper, to not take criticism personally, to not take disagreement personally, I think was in part a function not just of his general character, but he had a lot of practice dealing with a difficult person at home.
It's hard to imagine that after all these years, there are still new things to learn about the Lincolns. There's got to be a dozen books that come out every year. Was this information sitting there and other historians just didn't think it was pertinent? Or did you find a diary or something that nobody had discovered before?
Well, one of the most important discoveries I made, I just alluded to Lincoln's statement to his good friend, a lawyer from Quincy, who was a senator actually during the Civil War, that senator, a guy named Orville Browning, gave an interview 10 years after the assassination to Lincoln's personal secretary, principal White House secretary. And it's in that interview that he talks about how he was constantly afraid that he would be disgraced by his wife. And that I discovered years ago. It was at Brown University. So that was one of the discoveries I made. And then another discovery I made is that Browning kept a diary of his activities for many years. And that Browning diary was published years ago, but 6 passages were omitted because of reference to Mrs. Lincoln. And I persuaded the university, or actually it was the Illinois State Library then, to release those diary passages in which Browning is told by White House staff that Mrs. Lincoln is engaged in all kinds of unethical practices, including padding of payrolls and all those other things I mentioned. So the Browning interview and the Browning diary entries are really two of the most important discoveries I've made in this realm.
All right. Well, the book is called An American Marriage, The Untold Story of Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.